The Viet Cong ruled Phuoc Thui's jungles. Then, a handful of Australians stepped into the shadows. In 1966, just 75 Special Air Service men arrived, armed not with firepower, but patience and silence. No one expected a small team to tilt an entire province into chaos. The results were intelligence coups, enemy panic, and a casualty count that stunned the world. How did invisible hunters, outnumbered and outgunned, reverse the war in the Viet Cong's backyard? This is the story you have not heard. Dense jungle pressed in from every side across Phuoc Thui province, its tangled canopy blotting out the sun and swallowing sound. Trails snaked through the undergrowth, some barely wider than a boot print, others worn smooth by years of silent passage. Each path was a lifeline for the Viet Cong, connecting hidden camps, supply caches, and escape routes in a web that only they truly understood. The rubber plantations, with their neat rows of trees, offered more than just cover from the air. At ground level, the shadows between trunks became shifting corridors, perfect for quick movement or sudden disappearance. When monsoon rain swept through, the ground turned to mud, muffling footsteps and making it nearly impossible to track anyone who knew how to move in the wet. Nightfall brought another transformation. The jungle, already thick and claustrophobic by day, became a world of whispers and shifting shapes after dark. The Viet Cong owned these hours. Under the cover of darkness, they moved patrols, ferried supplies, and laid ambushes, slipping past Allied positions without a trace. Every rustle could be a patrol. Every stillness could hide an observer. Weather shaped everything. The heat sapped strength and patience. Sudden downpours drowned out even the closest movements, while the humidity clung to skin and gear, making every step a test of endurance. Visibility dropped to a few meters in the thickest parts, and even the sharpest eyes could miss a figure crouched behind a tree or lying flat in the tall grass. For outsiders, the land was unforgiving, a maze where every sense was dulled and every movement risked discovery. For the Viet Cong, it was home turf. They set the pace, chose the trails, and vanished at will. The jungle wasn't just a backdrop, it was a weapon, and for years it belonged to the enemy. Australian infantry battalions entered Phuoc Thui with the best training available, but their methods clashed with the jungle itself. Standard patrols moved in groups of 30 to 100 men, boots crunching undergrowth, radios squawking, weapons clinking against webbing. Every step sent warning ahead. In the dense undergrowth, sound carried farther than sight. Viet Cong sentries, posted along trails and hidden in the brush, could hear a platoon coming from over 1 kilometer away. By the time Australians reached a suspected camp or trail, the enemy had already melted into the shadows, leaving nothing but trampled grass and empty fire pits. Maps and aerial photos offered little help. The jungle canopy hid movement from above, and the maze of footpaths shifted with the seasons. Patrols followed known trails, but these routes were predictable. The Viet Cong learned to anticipate patrol times and patterns, laying traps or simply avoiding contact altogether. Each operation became a chase with no finish line. Australian forces searched for an enemy who controlled the clock and the ground. Attempts to force a fight often backfired. Large patrols tried to sweep through suspected Viet Cong areas, but the noise and size of these units gave away their intentions. Instead of drawing the enemy out, they pushed him deeper into the green. Intelligence reports grew thin. Commanders received only fragments, old footprints, burnt rice, a glimpse of movement at dusk. The real enemy remained invisible, slipping between the cracks of conventional warfare. Frustration mounted as weeks passed with few results. Australian units found themselves walking in circles, burning energy and resources without ever pinning down the opposition. The jungle swallowed their efforts. It became clear that the tactics that worked in open country or villages offered little advantage here. Something had to change. The answer would not come from more men or heavier firepower, but from a new way of thinking about the fight. On 16 June 1966, a Royal Australian Air Force C-130 rumbled down the runway at Vung Tau, carrying a small and little-known detachment, 3 Squadron, Special Air Service Regiment. 75 men, lean from months of training in Western Australia, stepped into South Vietnam with orders that set them apart from any other Australian unit. Their commander, Major Reginald Beasley, made the intent clear from the outset. He told his men that they were not there to kill people, but to gain information, brushing aside any talk of body counts or glory. The mission was intelligence, nothing more, nothing less. No fanfare greeted their arrival at Nui Dat. The squadron moved quietly, blending into the background as the base took shape around them. There would be no large-scale sweeps, no thunderous assaults. Instead, these men were tasked with slipping into the jungle, observing and reporting. The size of the force was striking, just a handful compared to the battalions they supported. But every patrol they planned was designed to go deeper and quieter than any before. Beasley's leadership set the tone for everything that followed. He banned killboards from the squadron's walls, refusing to let competition or bravado distract from the job at hand. The focus was on patience, precision, and survival. Every order, every briefing, reinforced a single idea. The Special Air Service were to be the eyes and ears of the task force, not its fist. Intelligence would be their weapon and silence their shield. As operational planning began, the men prepared for a kind of war most had never imagined, one where being seen or even heard could mean disaster. 5 men moved as one, each step measured and deliberate. In the Australian Special Air Service, patrols advanced not by the kilometer but by the meter, sometimes covering less ground in a day than a city commuter walks before breakfast. Every 50 meters, the team froze in place for a full 5 minutes, senses tuned to the jungle's hidden rhythms. This pause was not just caution, it was doctrine. Silence and stillness let the patrol melt into the landscape, watching for the faintest sign of Viet Cong movement or a well-camouflaged booby trap. Radios stayed silent except in emergencies. Even a whispered transmission could betray their presence to an enemy expert at reading the jungle's unnatural sounds. Gear was stripped down and rebuilt for stealth. Boots were chosen for quiet tread, and every buckle or metal clasp was taped or replaced with cloth loops. Standard issue webbing was reworked, pouches hung low, metal slide keepers removed, and canteens painted in dull greens and browns. The goal was to erase every click, rattle, or glint that could give away a position. Weapons, too, were reshaped in the field. The L1A1 self-loading rifle, already a powerful tool, was cut down by Special Air Service armorers to reduce length and weight. Barrels were shortened, flash suppressors swapped for M60 machine gun brakes, and vertical foregrips bolted on for control in thick undergrowth. 30-round magazines replaced the standard 20-round magazines, demanding new pouches and careful attention to balance. Each modification served a single purpose: to move, observe, and if needed, strike without warning. Patrols carried only what they needed to survive and fight for days at a time. Rations were minimal. Water carried high and low for quick access, and even tools for clearing brush were chosen for silence. Secateurs instead of machetes. Every detail, from the way a magazine was drawn to the way a canteen was uncapped, was rehearsed until it could be done blindfolded. In this environment, the difference between life and death often came down to a single, careless sound. The jungle belonged to those who could disappear within it, and the Special Air Service made disappearance an art. Patrols vanished into the jungle for up to 3 days at a time, settling into the undergrowth with a single purpose: to watch. For 48 to 72 hours, 5 men would lie motionless, eyes scanning well-worn tracks, ears tuned to the faintest footstep or whispered order. Every movement was measured, every breath controlled, as they mapped the routines of an enemy who believed the jungle was theirs alone. Patterns emerged slowly. A group of porters always passed at dawn. A squad returned at dusk, never using the same route twice. The smallest details, mud on a boot, a cigarette stub, became clues in a silent hunt. Contact was never the goal. The SAS could spend days gathering intelligence and slip away without a shot fired, leaving the Viet Cong unaware they had ever been watched. But when the time came to act, the strike was swift and overwhelming. Ambushes lasted no more than 15 to 20 seconds, just long enough for a claymore blast and a burst of automatic fire to clear the kill zone. Then, as quickly as it began, the jungle fell silent again. The patrol melted away, leaving only confusion and fear behind. This observation-driven doctrine was built on patience and restraint. Intelligence shaped every decision. The enemy's habits, mapped over days, turned into opportunities measured in seconds. The SAS did not chase the Viet Cong, they waited, invisible, until the perfect moment. In this model, information was the weapon, and violence was a tool used only when the odds favored survival. In the early morning, at 4:23 on 25 June 1966, 5 Australians lay silent in the thick brush near a well-used Viet Cong supply trail outside Nui Dat. Corporal Jack Morrison, just 23 years old, led the patrol. Each man had crawled into position hours before, moving inch by inch to avoid snapping a twig or rustling a leaf. In the darkness, 2 claymore mines faced the trail, wires snaking back to Morrison's hand. He watched the narrow path, every sense sharpened by adrenaline and the weight of responsibility. The patrol had tracked movement patterns for days, logging the times and numbers of enemy porters using this route. That night, 7 Viet Cong slipped into the kill zone, unaware of the eyes fixed on them. Morrison waited as long as he dared, counting silhouettes in the half-light. When the last man entered the arc, his thumb pressed the clacker. The claymores erupted, sending hundreds of steel balls in a lethal fan. 4 enemy fighters fell instantly. The rest scattered into the jungle, firing wildly at shadows. The Australians did not return fire. Their job was done. Within seconds, the patrol melted away, moving through pre-planned escape routes. Not a single word was spoken. There were no Australian casualties. The entire contact lasted less than half a minute. Morrison's team left behind a trail littered with confusion, fear, and proof that the jungle's balance of power had shifted. For the first time, the Viet Cong had been ambushed by an enemy they never heard coming. Viet Cong commanders soon faced a new kind of threat, one they could not see, hear, or predict. After the first silent ambushes, reports filtered through the chain. Patrols were missing. Trails that had been safe for years now spelled danger. Captured documents began to mention unknown forces and invisible hunters. The term Marang, meaning phantom, spread among Viet Cong units in Phuoc Tuy. Fear became as disruptive as firepower. Night movement, once routine, dropped off sharply. Supply runners abandoned well-worn tracks, sometimes detouring for hours to avoid areas where Australians might be watching. Even veteran guerrillas hesitated before entering familiar jungle corridors, unsure if unseen eyes were tracking their every step. The psychological effect rippled outward. Viet Cong units increased their internal security, posted extra sentries, and changed routines. Yet every adjustment seemed to confirm the presence of an enemy who could not be found. In some sectors, entire trail networks were left unused, disrupting logistics and slowing operations. The jungle, once a sanctuary, now felt compromised. Australian patrols, though rarely seen, forced the enemy to fight shadows and uncertainty. Intelligence gathered by these small teams did not just unsettle the Viet Cong, it shaped the broader campaign. Detailed trail maps and movement logs compiled by the Special Air Service Regiment played a direct role in major actions, most notably at Long Tan. In August 1966, information from weeks of covert observation allowed Australian commanders to anticipate enemy concentrations and react with precision. The fear of the Marang lingered long after each patrol withdrew. In Phuoc Tuy, the jungle no longer belonged to just one side. Across 5 years in Vietnam, the Australian Special Air Service, the SAS, ran more than 1,200 patrols through the jungles of Phuoc Tuy and beyond. Most teams numbered just 5 men. At any given moment, fewer than 20 SAS operators might be out in the field, yet their impact reached far beyond their numbers. Patrol reports logged over 500 confirmed enemy killed or captured. The scale of these results stood out, and no other Australian unit matched such a ratio. The SAS worked with a precision that made each engagement count, often striking and vanishing before the enemy could react. In return, the regiment suffered only 3 killed in action during the entire Vietnam campaign. The figures defied expectations and drew quiet attention from Allied commanders. How could so few men, operating in such small teams, deliver these results while avoiding the casualty rates that haunted larger units? The answer lay in the operational ledger: relentless reconnaissance, carefully chosen ambushes, and a discipline for silence that left the enemy guessing. For the SAS, effectiveness was measured not just in victories, but in the lives preserved on both sides of the fight. Long hours in the jungle left their mark in ways that didn't always show up on casualty reports. The patience demanded by SAS doctrine, days spent motionless with senses straining for the faintest hint of danger, took a toll of its own. Veterans rarely spoke about the anxiety that lingered after returning home, or the challenge of finding meaning in routine life after years spent hunting shadows. Some found themselves waking at night, heart pounding at the sound of a branch snapping outside a window. Others struggled to reconnect with families who could never fully grasp what it meant to disappear into the green, to trust silence more than speech. Official studies years later acknowledged the price paid for such excellence. The detachment required to survive deep reconnaissance, and the emotional distance maintained on patrol sometimes made reintegration difficult. The regiment's post-war experience helped shape new policies. Counseling, debriefing, and mental health support became part of the legacy, even if these changes arrived too late for some. Yet the lessons of Vietnam went further than any one generation. Modern special operations forces around the world still draw from the SAS playbook: patience over firepower, intelligence over numbers, fear as a weapon more powerful than bullets. One former trooper put it simply: you can teach a man to shoot, teaching him to wait is harder. Today, small teams shape conflicts far beyond their numbers, on every front where intelligence and patience outweigh brute force. The legacy of those operations defines modern special forces worldwide. As warfare grows quieter and more complex, the lessons learned in those jungles remain urgent. The greatest power may still belong to those you never see. What do you think? Does fear still win the fight? Share your thoughts below.